At the family meeting, my son Michael stood up, looked at everyone present, and declared, "Dad is going to give me all 11 rental homes in New York." "What a pity. You won't be getting anything, Mum." My daughter-in-law Jennifer applauded, as if she were in a theatre. I just smiled and said, "Son, you truly don't know, do you?" He froze. Jennifer shouted, "Know what?" And I kept silent, because they had forgotten the most important part. Let me tell you how we arrived at this moment, because what happened that day was no accident. It was the result of years of being invisible in my own family. My name is Eleanor, I am 64 years old, and for 40 years I built an empire alongside my husband Charles. Brick by brick, sacrifice after sacrifice, while others slept, we worked, while others spent, we saved. 11 properties in New York, 11 houses that generated constant income, 11 proofs that hard work and dedication pay off. But when Charles passed away 3 years ago, something changed. Not in me, but in my son. Michael had always been our pride, our only child. We gave him everything, education at the best schools, opportunities we never had. We prepared him to be a good man, honest, hard-working, like his father. But I never imagined that the day Charles closed his eyes forever, Michael would open his, full of ambition. At first, the comments were subtle. "Mum, now that Dad's gone, maybe you should let me manage the properties." "Oh, don't worry about the numbers. I'll take care of everything." It sounded considerate, protective even. But I knew those numbers better than the lines on my own hand. I had handled the accounts for decades. I knew exactly how much was coming in and how much was going out. And then Jennifer came into his life. A 32-year-old woman, long, perfect hair, always impeccable nails, expensive dresses, a calculated smile. She married Michael 2 years after Charles's death. And from day one, she looked at me as if I were an obstacle, a nuisance between her and what she considered hers. "Mother-in-law," she would say to me in that sweet and poisonous voice, "it must be so hard for you to manage all those properties alone. Why don't you let Michael take the reins? After all, eventually everything will be his. Eventually." That word was repeated over and over at every family gathering, at every dinner, in every phone call. As if I were already dead. As if my life and my 40 years of work meant nothing. I remember one particular afternoon. 6 months had passed since the wedding. We were in my house. Jennifer wore a champagne-coloured dress that probably cost more than the monthly rent of one of my properties. She sat on the sofa where Charles and I used to plan our future and crossed her legs with that rehearsed elegance. "Eleanor," she said, no longer even calling me mother-in-law, "Michael and I have been talking. We think it's time for you to rest. You've worked so hard. You deserve to enjoy your old age." Old age? I was 62 at the time. I walked 3 miles daily. I managed my properties without anyone's help. I paid my bills. I made my own decisions. But to her, I was already a useless old woman. "I appreciate your concern," I replied calmly, "but I am perfectly capable of managing what Charles and I built." Jennifer smiled. That smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course you are. But wouldn't it be easier if Michael took over? After all, someday everything will be his. Why wait?" Why wait? As if my existence was pending paperwork. Michael was sitting next to her. My son. The boy I nursed. The boy I carried in my arms when he had a fever. The boy I taught to read, to ride a bicycle, to be a man of honor. And he didn't say anything. He didn't defend me. He only nodded when Jennifer spoke. That was the first time I felt the cold in my own living room. The cold of silent betrayal. The cold of realizing that to my own son, I was no longer his mother. I was an obstacle between him and 11 properties in New York. But I didn't say anything that day. I just smiled. I served coffee. I offered cookies. And when they left, I sat on the same sofa where Jennifer had crossed her legs. I closed my eyes. I thought about Charles, about everything we had built, about everything we had sacrificed. And I made a decision. If they wanted to play, I would play. But by my rules. Comment if you have ever felt that your own family sees you as a nuisance and not as a person. The following months were strange. Jennifer and Michael started visiting me more often, but it wasn't out of affection. It was strategy. Every visit included comments about my health, about my age, about how tired I must be. "Mum, you look exhausted," Michael would say. "Mother-in-law, have you thought about moving to a smaller place? These stairs must be difficult for you." Stairs that I climbed without problem every day. One day they arrived with papers, legal documents. Jennifer placed them on the dining table with that smile. "It's just a precaution," she said. "A power of attorney. So Michael can help you make decisions if something happens to you." If something happens to me? "It's not necessary," I replied. "Mum, it's the sensible thing to do." Michael's voice sounded impatient, as if I were a stubborn child. I looked at both of them, Jennifer in her pearl-coloured dress, Michael in his expensive suit that I myself had given him for his birthday. "Let me think about it," I said. Jennifer pressed her lips together. Michael sighed in frustration. I didn't sign anything that day. Not that day, nor any other. Because I knew something they didn't. Something Charles had taught me in 40 years of marriage. Never show all your cards. And never, ever underestimate a woman who has built an empire from scratch. But let me take you further back in time. Because to understand why I did what I did, you need to know who I was before all this. I met Charles when I was 24 years old. I worked cleaning offices in downtown New York. 3 jobs, 12-hour shifts. My hands cracked from chlorine and detergents. Charles worked in construction. He would come home with his boots full of cement and his arms marked by the sun. We had nothing. We lived in a one-room apartment where the paint was peeling off the walls. We shared an old car that stalled at every stoplight. We ate casserole and rice 6 days a week, but we had a dream. Someday, Charles would tell me as we counted coins on the kitchen table, we are going to have properties. We are going to be owners, not tenants. And we worked toward that dream like animals. We saved every single cent. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't go to the movies. We didn't buy new clothes. Every dollar we earned went straight into a savings account. It took us 7 years to save up the down payment for our first property. 7 years. A small house in a neighborhood nobody wanted. Cracked walls, rusted pipes. But it was ours. We fixed it up with our own hands. Charles learned plumbing by watching videos. I learned to paint, to repair, to do everything. We rented it out. And with that money, we saved for the second. It went like that for 40 years, one property after another, sacrifice after sacrifice. While Michael grew up, we worked. When other parents took their children to amusement parks, we were repairing roofs. When others went on vacation, we were negotiating with banks. But we never regretted it, because we were building a future, not just for ourselves, for our family, for our son. Michael never saw the nights Charles and I stayed up worried about paying the mortgage. He never saw my hands bleeding after cleaning an entire property by myself because we couldn't afford help. He never saw his father work with a fever because we couldn't afford to lose a day of work. He only saw the result. 11 houses, stable income, comfort. And he assumed it had all been easy, that it had fallen from the sky, that it was his natural right to inherit everything without effort. When Charles got sick, Everything changed. It was fast. Too fast. One day he was fine. The next, the doctors gave us 6 months. Cancer. Aggressive. Unrelenting. During those 6 months, Charles and I had many conversations. Difficult conversations. Conversations no couple wants to have. One night, 3 months before he died, we were at the hospital. It was late. The hallways were silent. Charles took my hand. His fingers were cold, weak. "Eleanor," he told me, "I need you to listen carefully." "I'm listening." "Everything we built together. But legally, many properties are in my name. That has to change." "Charles, let's not talk about that now." "We have to talk about it." His voice was firm despite the weakness. "When I'm gone, Michael is going to want to take control. I know him. He is my son. But I also know his character. And if things are left to his discretion, you will be left with nothing." Michael wouldn't do that. Charles looked at me with those eyes that knew me better than anyone. "Are you sure?" I didn't answer because deep down, I had also seen the changes in Michael. The way he talked about money, the way he asked about the properties, the impatience in his voice when I made decisions without consulting him. "The lawyer is coming tomorrow," Charles said. "We are going to transfer everything to your name. Everything. The 11 properties, the accounts, everything. Because you are the one who deserves to decide what to do with what we built together. And Michael. Michael will receive what is fair when the time comes. But you decide that time. No one else." The next day, Rose came. Rose had been our lawyer for 15 years. A woman in her 50s, serious, professional, short grey hair that she wore with pride. A tan suit, always a tan suit. She carried a folder full of documents. Charles signed each one with a trembling hand. I signed after. And so, in a hospital room that smelled of disinfectant and sadness, 11 properties passed completely into my name. "Eleanor," Rose told me before leaving, "keep these documents in a safe place. And if you ever need help, call me, no matter the hour." "Thank you, Rose." She looked at me with a strange intensity. Charles told me about his worries about Michael. I have also seen changes in him over the years. Be careful. He is my son. I know. But money changes people. And 11 properties in New York is a lot of money. She left. Charles fell asleep, and I stayed sitting next to his bed, holding a folder that contained the future of everything we had built. 3 months later, Charles died. The funeral was on a rainy Tuesday. The whole family came. Cousins, aunts and uncles, friends. The cemetery was full of black umbrellas and tears. Michael cried. Jennifer was by his side, in an elegant black dress and high heels that sank into the wet grass. She hugged me. She said words of comfort that sounded rehearsed. But I watched her. I saw how she looked at the people arriving, how she calculated, how she evaluated who had money and who didn't, how her hug lasted longer with those who dressed better. And I knew. I knew the battle was just beginning. After the funeral, there was a gathering at my house, relatives eating, sharing memories of Charles. But Michael and Jennifer separated themselves with me in the kitchen. "Mum," Michael said, "we have to talk about the properties. Now. It's important. We need to know how things are legally." Jennifer nodded. "It's best, so there are no surprises later." "Surprises? Everything is in order," I said simply. "Dad left a will." "Yes." "And what does it say?" I looked at both of them, my son, my daughter-in-law, 2 people who had just buried a good man and were already asking about their inheritance. It says that I decide what to do with everything. Michael blinked. What does that mean? It means exactly what you heard. Your father left everything to my discretion, when I decide, and how I decide. Jennifer tightened her jaw. Michael turned red. But Mum, that doesn't make sense. Eventually everything must pass to me. I'm the only heir. Eventually, but not now. When then? When I decide. The silence in that kitchen was colder than any winter. The months following Charles's death were the hardest of my life. Not just because of the pain of losing the man I shared 40 years with, but because of discovering that my son had become a stranger. Michael started calling me every day, not to ask how I was, not to see if I needed company, but to talk about the properties. Mum, the tenant in the Queen's house says there's a leak. Have you called the plumber? Mum, the rent for the property in Staten Island hasn't been deposited. Did you check? Mum, you should raise the rent prices. You're charging too little. As if I didn't know how to manage what I had managed for decades. And Jennifer, she was worse. She would come to visit me with desserts bought at expensive bakeries. She would sit in my living room. She would look at Charles's photos on the walls. And she would talk. Eleanor, I've been thinking. 11 properties are too many for one person, especially at your age. At my age, you should consider selling some. It would be less stress for you. I don't want to sell. But think about it. You could have the money in the bank. Live peacefully, without worries. I don't have worries, she smiled. Always that smile. You could also transfer some to Michael's name. You know, to avoid taxes later. That's what smart people do. Smart people. As if 40 years of building an empire didn't qualify me as smart. I'll think about it, I would tell her, knowing I never would. But the visits continued. The calls continued. The pressure continued. Until one day, 6 months after the funeral, Michael showed up at my house unannounced. He brought Jennifer. And they brought something else. Papers. Mum, we need to talk seriously. Michael's voice sounded different, harder, colder. I'm listening. Jennifer put the papers on the table. They were legal documents, many documents. We've consulted with a lawyer, she said, and it turns out there are more efficient ways to manage the properties, ways that would benefit both you and us. What kind of ways? Creating a corporation, putting the properties in a trust, with Michael as the administrator. You would still receive the income. Of course. But the management would be more professional. More professional. As if I had been playing house for 40 years. I'm not interested. Mum, you're not understanding. Michael leaned forward. This is not optional. It's the right thing to do. It's what Dad would have wanted. Your father left everything to me. He trusted my judgment. Dad was sick when he made those decisions. He wasn't thinking clearly. The air went out of my lungs. What did you say? What you heard. Dad wasn't in his right mind. Any judge would understand that. Jennifer placed her hand on Michael's, a gesture that was supposed to be reassuring, but was clearly calculated. Eleanor, we don't want to fight. We just want what's best for everyone. Sign these papers. Let's do this in a civilized manner. I looked at both of them, my son and his wife. Sitting at the table where Charles and I had planned our future, where we had celebrated birthdays, where we had cried and laughed. Get out of my house. What? Get out. Now. Michael stood up. His face was red with fury. You know what? You're making a mistake. A big mistake. Sooner or later, everything will be mine anyway. The only thing you're doing is making things complicated. Out! Jennifer gathered the papers with rough movements. She looked at me with a contempt that she no longer even tried to hide. You're a stubborn old woman, she said, and stubborn old women end up alone in nursing homes. They left, slamming the door. I stayed sitting at that table, trembling, not from fear, from rage, because in that moment I understood something fundamental. My son was no longer my son. He was a stranger driven by greed, and his wife was the devil whispering in his ear. That night I called Rose. I need to see you, I told her, urgently. What happened? Michael is trying to take everything from me. There was silence on the other end of the line. I'm on my way. Rose arrived an hour later. She walked in with her leather briefcase and her serious expression. She sat down across from me. She took out a notepad. Tell me everything. I told her. The visits, the pressures, the papers, the veiled threats. Everything. Rose listened. She took notes. Her expression became graver with every word. When I finished, she closed her notepad. Eleanor, what Michael is trying to do has a name. Financial abuse of the elderly. It's illegal. And if he continues to pressure you, we can take legal action. I don't want to sue my son. I understand. But you need to protect yourself. How? Rose leaned forward. Her eyes shone with an intensity I hadn't seen before. I want to propose something to you. Something Charles and I had discussed before he died, but didn't have time to implement. What is it? A plan. A plan to ensure that if Michael tries to take what is yours, he encounters a very unpleasant surprise. I don't understand. Listen carefully. The 11 properties are in your name. That's good. But Michael can try to sue you. He can claim you are not mentally capable of managing them. He can create legal problems that cost you years and a lot of money to resolve. And what do you propose? Rose opened her briefcase. She took out more documents. I propose that we take total control of the situation, that we make moves Michael doesn't expect, that we protect your assets in a way that no one can question. What kind of moves? She smiled, a small but significant smile. First, we are going to create an airtight will, so solid that no lawyer can break it. Second, we are going to document every interaction you have with Michael from now on, every threat, every pressure, every attempt at manipulation. Third, she paused. She looked me directly in the eyes. Third, we are going to do something Michael will never see coming. What? We are going to sell the properties. I was speechless. Sell. Not all, but most. Discreetly. One by one. Over the next 2 years. And we are going to invest that money in a way that only you have access to. When Michael realizes, it will be too late. But those properties are my life. They are Charles's legacy. No, Eleanor. Rose's voice was firm but kind. The properties are just bricks and mortar. The important thing is that you are protected. I leaned back in the chair. My mind was a whirlwind. What if Michael asks? He knows how many properties I have. Does he know or does he assume? I thought about that. Michael had never seen the documents. He had never been involved in the actual management. He only knew what Charles and I had told him years ago. He assumes, I admitted. Exactly. And people who assume are easy to surprise. Rose placed the documents in front of me. Think about it tonight. But think carefully, because what's coming won't be easy. Michael is going to fight. He is going to threaten. He is going to try to manipulate you emotionally. Are you ready for that? I looked at the papers. I looked at Rose. I thought about Charles, about 40 years of sacrifice, about my son telling me that Charles wasn't in his right mind, about Jennifer calling me a stubborn old woman. I'm ready, I said. And that night, in my empty house, I made the hardest decision of my life. I was going to protect what Charles and I had built, even if that meant protecting it from my own son. The next 2 years were a masterpiece of silence and strategy. Rose and I met every 2 weeks, always at her office, never at my house. We never left a trace that Michael or Jennifer could follow. The first property I sold was the house in Staten Island, a small property, 2 bedrooms, good neighborhood. A young couple bought it for $320,000. When the money hit my account, I felt something strange. It wasn't sadness, it was power. How do you feel? Rose asked me. Free, I replied. And it was true. For 40 years, those properties had been my pride, but also my chain. Each one required maintenance, attention, worry. And now, with Charles dead and my son turned enemy, they had become more of a burden than a blessing. I sold the second property 3 months later, then the third, then the fourth. Rose helped me invest every dollar. Investment funds, bonds, accounts in different banks, everything in my name. Everything protected with passwords only I knew. And Michael suspected nothing, because I continued to live the same way. Same house, same car, same clothes. There were no visible changes in my lifestyle that could alert him. When he called asking about the properties, I replied with vagueness. Everything's fine, son. And the tenants, paying on time. Do you need help with anything? No, thank you. Everything is under control. And he remained calm. Because in his mind, the 11 properties were still there, waiting for him, his guaranteed inheritance. But there was a problem. Michael had started handling the collections for some properties, not because I had asked him to, but because he had simply started doing it. He would call the tenants directly. He would tell them he was the owner's son and that he would now be in charge of receiving the payments. And some tenants, not knowing any better, paid him. At first I didn't realize, but after 6 months, the numbers didn't add up. Money was missing, a lot of money. I told Rose. How much is missing? She asked. I pulled out my calculations. I had kept track of every payment that was due, approximately $42,000 in the last 8 months. Rose grew serious. Eleanor, that's theft. He's my son. He's a thief. Her voice left no room for debate. And we need to document it. Every cent that's missing. Every tenant who paid him instead of you. Everything. I spent the following weeks contacting tenants, asking them casual questions, confirming my suspicions. And yes, Michael had been collecting the rents for 3 properties. Money that never reached my accounts. Money that simply disappeared into his pockets. When Rose saw the complete evidence, she shook her head. This is enough to sue him criminally. I'm not going to put my son in jail. But you're going to use this if he tries anything, aren't you? I looked at her without answering, because we both knew the answer. Meanwhile, Jennifer was becoming more aggressive. One day, she showed up at my house with a real estate magazine. She sat on my sofa as if it were hers. She wore a pale pink dress and shoes that probably cost $1,000. Eleanor, look at this. She opened the magazine and pointed to an ad. Senior apartments. They have nurses, activities, meals included. Wouldn't it be perfect for you? I don't need nurses, not yet. But eventually we all reach that age. Wouldn't it be better to plan ahead? I'm happy in my house. This house is too big for you alone. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a huge yard. Why do you need so much space? It's my house. Jennifer closed the magazine. She looked at me with that expression I knew too well. False concern masking pure ambition. You know, if you sold this house, you could have a lot of extra money. You could live comfortably in a small apartment. And the rest of the money? She left the phrase hanging in the air. The rest could go into an account for Michael. You know, to secure his future. His future. As if my 38-year-old son, with a stable job and a wife who spent money like water, needed me to secure his future. I am not going to sell my house. You are so stubborn. She was no longer smiling. You know you'll eventually have to leave all this. Why not make it easier for everyone? You can leave, Jennifer. Excuse me? You can leave my house now. She stood up. Her face was red with contained rage. Michael was right. You are impossible. But it doesn't matter. Sooner or later, everything will be ours anyway. And when that happens, you're going to regret treating us like this. She left, leaving the door open. That night, when Rose came to review more documents, I told her what had happened. They are increasing the pressure, she observed. That means they are desperate. They probably have debts. They were probably counting on your money for something. How do you know? Experience. I've seen this hundreds of times. Children who expect inheritances, who spend in advance, who go into debt assuming their parents' money will save them. Rose looked at me seriously. Do you know Michael's financial situation? No. You should find out. It took me 2 weeks, but I discovered it. Michael and Jennifer lived in a house that cost $900,000. Huge mortgage, 3 luxury cars in the garage, vacations in Europe twice a year, designer clothes, expensive restaurants every weekend. And Michael's income didn't cover even half of that lifestyle. They were in debt up to their necks, and they were counting on my death to save them. That realization was like a punch to the stomach. My own son was waiting for me to die. Not because he loved me and was saddened to lose me, but because he needed my money. I showed the information to Rose. Worse than I thought, she said. They owe more than $200,000 in credit cards. The mortgage is 3 months behind. They are about to lose the house. How did you get that information? I have my sources. Rose closed the folder. Eleanor, this changes everything. Michael doesn't just want your inheritance. He desperately needs it. And desperate people do terrible things. What kind of things? They can try to have you declared mentally incompetent. They can forge documents. They can manipulate other relatives against you. They can do anything. I felt cold. What should I do? Accelerate the plan. So far you have sold 7 properties. 4 remain. We need to sell 3 more. Leave only 1. And we need to do it fast. Why only 1? Because when the confrontation comes, Michael needs to believe that there is still something to win. If he knows you sold everything, he could become violent. But if he believes 1 property is left, he will keep playing the game. And when will that confrontation be? Rose smiled. That smile I had learned to recognize. The smile of someone who has a perfect plan. Soon, very soon. But first, we need to set the stage. We need Michael to feel confident. We need him to believe he has already won. How? We are going to organize a family meeting. You are going to announce that you want to discuss the inheritance, that you are ready to make decisions. Michael is going to think you finally succumbed to his pressure. And then you will give him the surprise of his life. In the following weeks, I sold 3 more properties. Each sale gave me more power, more security, more certainty that I was doing the right thing. The accumulated money exceeded $8 million, all invested, all protected, all out of Michael's reach, and only one property remained. A small house in Long Island, the first one Charles and I had bought together, the one we had fixed up with our own hands. I wouldn't sell that one. That one had a different purpose in my plan. Rose finished preparing all the final documents. Airtight will, evidence of Michael's theft, record of all the pressures and manipulation attempts, complete documentation of all the sales. "You are ready," she told me. "How do you feel?" I thought about Charles, about 40 years together, about everything we had built, about the son we had raised with so much love, and who now only saw dollars where he should see his mother. "I feel at peace," I replied. And it was true, because I knew that what was coming wasn't revenge, it was justice. I called Michael on a Tuesday afternoon. "Son, I need you to come this Saturday, you and Jennifer. I'm going to have a family meeting." There was silence on the other end. I could feel his surprise. "A meeting? What for?" "To talk about the future, about the properties, about the inheritance. I think it's time to make decisions." Another silence. Longer. I could imagine him smiling, believing he had finally won. "Of course, Mom. We'll be there. What time?" 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And bring whoever you want. Family, friends. I want everyone to hear what I have to say." "Are you sure? Is it something private?" "No. I want witnesses. Michael. I want there to be no doubts later." "Whatever you say. We'll be there." He hung up, and I stayed holding the phone, breathing deeply, preparing for what was to come. Rose arrived on Friday night. She brought 2 briefcases full of documents. We reviewed them one by one. Every paper, every piece of evidence, every detail of the plan. "Nervous?" she asked me. "Terrified?" "It's normal. But remember, you are in control. You have the truth, and the truth always wins. And if Michael reacts badly, that's why I'll be there. And that's why you invited other relatives. Michael can yell, he can threaten, but he can't do anything in front of witnesses." Saturday dawned with a clear sky. I prepared coffee, I tidied the living room, I put the chairs in a circle, as if it were a normal meeting, an ordinary family conversation. But we both knew it wasn't. At 2 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. First came my cousin Amelia, a woman in her 60s, sweet, honest. She had always been my confidant. "Eleanor, what is all this?" she asked as she walked in. "You'll see, cousin. Just wait." Then came my neighbor, Rachel. I had known her for 20 years, a woman who had seen everything, who knew my history with Charles, who knew how hard we had worked. "Family meeting?" she asked curiously. "Something like that." And then they arrived. Michael walked in first, grey suit, expensive tie, a winner's smile. Jennifer came behind him, ivory dress, very high heels, designer purse. She walked as if she already owned the house. "Mum." Michael kissed my cheek. His hug was mechanical, cold. Jennifer didn't even greet me. She just sat in the best armchair and crossed her legs. Rose was the last to walk in, with her tan suit, her leather briefcase, her professional and impenetrable expression. Michael saw her and frowned. "The lawyer? Why is she here?" "Because this is a legal matter," I replied calmly. "Please, everyone sit down." I stood in front of them. 5 people looking at me, waiting. My heart was beating so hard, I thought everyone could hear it. I called you because it's time to speak clearly, without secrets, without lies, about the properties that Charles and I built over 40 years. Michael leaned forward. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. I know there's been tension between us, I continued. I know Michael has been anxious to know what's going to happen with the inheritance. Not anxious, Mum. Worried. For you. His voice sounded rehearsed. Sure. Worried. I couldn't help a sarcastic tone. So worried that you've been collecting rents from my properties without my permission. The silence was absolute. What? Jennifer looked at him with huge eyes. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. No? Let me refresh your memory. I signaled to Rose. She took documents from her briefcase. 3 properties, 8 months, $42,000 that you collected directly from the tenants, money that never reached my accounts. I was helping you. I was going to deposit it for you. In 8 months, you didn't have time to make one deposit. Mum, this is a misunderstanding. It is not a misunderstanding. It is theft. My voice sounded louder than I expected. But don't worry. I'm not going to sue you. You are my son. Despite everything, you are still my son. Michael breathed a sigh of relief. Wrong. However, I continued. I need to clarify some things about those 11 properties that interest you so much. What is there to clarify? They are 11 houses. Eventually they will be mine. You know that. Jennifer nodded. It's only fair. Michael is your only child. You're right about one thing. Michael is my only child. I paused. Long. Deliberate. But you're wrong about something else. About what? About the number of properties. Michael blinked. What do you mean? I mean there aren't 11 properties. The colour completely drained from his face. What? There are not 11 properties waiting for you, Michael. In fact, there is barely one left. Jennifer jumped to her feet. What did you do? What I had the right to do. I sold my properties. 10 of them. Over the last 2 years. One by one. While you were pressuring me. While you were calling me old. While you were planning to put me in a nursing home to take everything. That is... Jennifer couldn't finish the sentence. Michael stood up too. His face was red. The veins in his neck stood out. You can't do that. Those properties are my inheritance. They were my properties, I corrected, and I could do with them whatever I wanted, just as Charles wanted me to do. Dad never would have wanted this. Oh no? I looked at Rose. She took out another document. Rose, can you read what Charles wrote 3 months before he died? Rose put on her glasses. She read in a clear, strong voice. Eleanor, my love, my life partner. If you are reading this, it is because I am gone. I want you to know that I respect every decision you make with our properties. If you need to sell them to protect yourself, sell them. If you need to use them to have peace, use them. The only thing that matters to me is that you are well, that no one manipulates you, that no one takes what we built together from you, not even Michael. Especially if Michael becomes the person I fear he will become when money is involved. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad didn't write that, Michael whispered. It is signed, notarized, dated. Rose placed the document on the table. And there is more. Charles also left specific instructions on what to do if you tried to take control from your mother. This is a conspiracy. Jennifer pointed a finger at Rose. You two manipulated a dying man. Be careful what you say, Rose warned in an icy voice. I have 5 other witnesses who were present when Charles signed these documents, including 2 notaries and a doctor who certified that he was in full use of his mental faculties. Amelia looked at me with tears in her eyes. Rachel shook her head, but smiled. They were on my side. I could feel it. "And the money?" Jennifer asked. Her voice sounded desperate. "Where is the money from the sales?" "Safe. In investments, in bank accounts, in places neither you nor Michael can touch it. We have debts. We need that money." Jennifer covered her mouth. She realized what she had just said. "Ah, there's the truth." My voice sounded calm, almost kind. "You don't care about my well-being. You care about your debts, your expensive house, your luxury cars, your vacations in Europe." "Mum, we can talk about this." Michael tried to approach. "Please, I made mistakes. I admit it. But I'm your son, your only son. Are you really going to leave me with nothing?" "I am not going to leave you with nothing." My answer surprised him. "I am going to leave you exactly what you deserve." "What does that mean?" "It means that the only property left, the house in Long Island, is not for you." "For who then?" "For your children, my grandchildren, David and Sarah." I saw Jennifer stifle a scream. "They will receive that property when they turn 25 years old. Until then, it will be in a trust that neither you nor Jennifer can touch. Those are our children. They are my grandchildren, and I will not allow you to squander their inheritance paying your ridiculous debts." Michael slumped into the armchair. His hands were on his head. Jennifer paced back and forth like a caged animal. "There's more," I added, and this time my voice sounded hard, cold. "If you try to fight this legally, Rose has complete documentation of the $42,000 you stole, Michael, and she is ready to file criminal charges." "That would destroy me. You should have thought about that before stealing from your mother." Jennifer turned towards me. Her face was a mask of pure hatred. "You are a bitter, cruel old woman. I hope you die alone." "I am already alone, Jennifer. My husband died. And my son died the day he decided that I was worth less than a handful of properties." Michael looked up. His eyes were red. For a moment I thought he was going to cry. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of powerless rage. "You can't do this to us," he whispered. "We are your family." "Family?" The word came out of my mouth like poison. "You talk to me about family? The same son who called the tenants behind my back. The same one who said his father wasn't in his right mind when he left everything to me. The same one who called me a stubborn old woman. I never—" "Don't lie." My voice sounded like thunder. "Rose, please play the recording." Michael went pale as paper. "What recording?" Rose took a small device from her briefcase. She pressed a button, and Jennifer's voice filled the room. "You're a stubborn old woman, and stubborn old women end up alone in nursing homes." Then Michael's voice. "Mum, you're not understanding. This is not optional. It's the right thing to do. It's what Dad would have wanted." And again, Jennifer. "Sooner or later, everything will be ours anyway. And when that happens, you're going to regret treating us like this." Rose turned off the device. Amelia had her hand over her mouth. Rachel shook her head with clear disgust. "You recorded our conversations." Jennifer sounded hysterical. "That's illegal." "Not in the state of New York," Rose replied with professional calm. "New York is a one-party consent state. Eleanor had every right to record conversations in her own home. This is cheating, manipulation." "No, Jennifer. This is evidence. Evidence that you tried to coerce a 64-year-old woman into handing over her assets. Evidence that any judge would take very seriously. Michael stood up. He walked toward me. For a second, I thought he was going to do something violent, but he stopped 3 feet away. Why, Mum? Why are you doing this to us? Why? Why did you force me? My voice broke for the first time. Why didn't you leave me an alternative? Why did you stop seeing me as your mother and start seeing me as a bank account? I love you. No, Michael. You don't love me. You love what you think I have. You love what you think you can get from me. But the person, you stopped loving me a long time ago. That's not true. Oh no. When was the last time you asked me how I felt? When was the last time you came to visit me alone without talking about money or properties? When was the last time you looked at me like your mother and not like your future inheritance? Michael opened his mouth, but no words came out. Because he didn't have an answer. Because he knew I was right. Do you know what the saddest thing is? I continued. That your father and I worked 40 years to give you a better life. So you wouldn't suffer what we suffered. So you would have opportunities, education, a future. And instead of honoring that sacrifice by working hard like us, you decided to simply wait for me to die, to take what you never earned. Mum. No, you no longer have the right to call me that. The words came out cold, final. A mother is someone you respect, someone you care for, someone you protect. I am none of that to you. I am just an obstacle between you and the money. Jennifer took a step forward. Her face was a mask of fury. And what are we supposed to do now? How are we going to pay our debts? How are we going to keep our house? That is not my problem. My answer was simple, direct. We are your family. No, you are 2 adults who lived beyond your means expecting my death to save you. That is not family, that is parasitism. We have children, your grandchildren. Exactly. And that's why the property that remains is for them, not for you, because I don't trust you to do the right thing. But I trust that when David and Sarah are 25 years old, they will be mature enough to handle their inheritance. Michael turned toward Rose. There has to be something we can do, some way to fight this. Rose looked at him without a hint of sympathy. You can try. You can hire lawyers. You can spend the little you have left on legal fees. But I guarantee you will lose. Everything is in order. Everything is documented. Everything is airtight. And furthermore, she paused deliberately. Furthermore, we have evidence that you stole $42,000. If you try anything, we will press charges. And then you won't just lose the case. You will go to prison. Jennifer let out a sob, not of sadness, of pure rage. This is not going to stand. We are going to find a way. We are going to… You are not going to do anything. Amelia spoke for the first time. Her voice was firm. I have heard enough. I watched Eleanor and Charles work for decades. I saw their sacrifices. And now I see who you really are. You should be ashamed. Rachel nodded. I am also a witness to everything that was said here. And if you try to do anything against Eleanor, I will testify. Gladly. Michael looked around, searching for allies, searching for support. He found none. Only faces that judged him. Only people who had seen his true nature. Leave, I finally said. Leave my house. Mum, please. I am not your mother, not anymore. A mother is earned with respect and love. You haven't given me either of those things in years. So go, and don't come back. Jennifer was already at the door. Michael followed her slowly, like a man in shock, like someone who has just lost everything and still can't process it. Before leaving, he turned one last time. "You are never going to forgive me." I looked at him. I saw the boy he was, the son I loved, the man he had become. "There is nothing to forgive, Michael. Because to forgive, I first need you to acknowledge what you did, to feel genuine remorse, to understand the pain you caused. And I don't see any of that in your eyes. I only see someone furious because his plan failed." I go. He left. The door closed behind them, and the silence that followed was the deepest I had felt in years. Amelia approached and hugged me. I cried on her shoulder, not out of sadness, out of liberation. "You did the right thing," she whispered. "Charles would be proud." Rachel hugged me too. "You are the strongest woman I know." Rose put all the documents back in her briefcase. She looked at me with a small smile. "How do you feel?" "Free," I replied, and for the first time in 3 years. It was true. That night, when everyone left, I sat alone in my living room. I looked at Charles's photos on the walls, our photos from our youth, our photos working on the properties, our photos smiling after every successful sale. "I did it, love," I said to his photograph. "I protected what we built. I protected your legacy, and I protected myself." The wind moved the curtains. For a moment I could almost feel his presence, his approval. I slept better that night than I had in years, because there was finally peace. Peace that comes from doing the right thing, from setting boundaries, from refusing to be a victim. Peace that comes from understanding that sometimes protecting yourself means saying goodbye to the people you love the most, even if those people are your own flesh and blood. The following days were strange. My phone rang constantly. Michael called. He left messages, at first furious, then pleading, then furious again. I didn't answer any. Jennifer wrote me emails, long, accusatory, full of veiled threats. I deleted them without reading, because I had already said everything I had to say, and they had heard everything they needed to hear. A week later, Rose called me. "Eleanor, I need to inform you of something." "What happened?" "Michael hired a lawyer. They are going to try to fight the will." I waited to feel fear, worry, anxiety, but I didn't feel any of that. "Do they have a case?" "None. Absolutely none. But the process can take months, maybe a year." "Are you prepared for that?" "I am prepared." And I was, because the truth was my armor, and justice was on my side. The legal process began 3 weeks after the meeting. Michael and Jennifer hired an expensive lawyer, one of those who promise the impossible for astronomical fees, a man in his 50s with a black suit and a shark smile. Rose received the documents in her office. She read them with an impassive expression. Then she looked at me and smiled. "This is pathetic." "What do they say?" "They allege that Charles was not mentally competent when he transferred the properties to your name. They allege that you manipulated him, that you pressured him on his deathbed, that you exerted undue influence over a dying man." Every word was like a slap. How can they say that? Because they are desperate, and desperate people lie. Rose put the papers on her desk. "But we have something they don't have." "What?" "The truth, and exhaustive documentation. We have Charles's medical records that prove he was mentally lucid. We have declarations from 3 doctors. We have the testimony of 2 notaries. We have the dates that show that the transfers began months before his health worsened. Then they are going to lose. They are going to lose so ugly that the judge will probably reprimand them for wasting the court's time. She was right. But the process was exhausting anyway. Depositions, interrogations, documents, more documents, court dates that moved, lawyers speaking in complicated legal terms, hours sitting in offices, answering the same questions over and over. When did you know your husband would transfer the properties to you? 3 months before his death. Did you ask him to do it? No, it was his idea. Why do you think he did it? Because he loved me, because he trusted me, because he wanted to protect me. What did he need to protect you from? I looked directly at Michael's lawyer. From what is happening right now. From this. From someone trying to take what I built with my own work. The lawyer clenched his jaw. Throughout the process, Michael didn't look at me once. He sat across the room with Jennifer. She held his hand, whispered in his ear, manipulated him even there. Once, during a recess, Amelia, who had come to support me, approached Michael. "Aren't you ashamed," she asked him, "to take your own mother to court, to try to steal what is hers?" "She stole from us first," he responded bitterly. "She stole from you? By selling her own properties? The ones she and your father bought without your help?" Michael had no answer. Amelia shook her head and returned to my side. "He's lost," she whispered to me. "Completely lost." And she was right. The trial took 6 months, 6 months of stress, of sleepless nights, of wondering if I had done the right thing. But every time I doubted, I remembered Jennifer's words. I remembered the recordings. I remembered the $42,000 stolen. I remembered the disrespect, the manipulation, the attempts to control me. And then I knew that, yes, that I had done exactly the right thing. Finally, the day of the verdict arrived. The room was full. Michael and Jennifer on one side, I on the other with Rose, Amelia, and Rachel. The judge was a man in his 65s, grey hair, serious expression, glasses that slipped down his nose. He had reviewed all the documents, all the evidence, all the testimonies. "I have reviewed this case exhaustively," he began. His voice filled the room. "And I must say that it is one of the clearest cases I have seen in years." Michael leaned forward, hopeful. "The plaintiffs allege that Mr. Charles, the defendant's husband, was not mentally competent when he transferred his properties. However, the evidence proves the opposite, beyond a doubt." Michael's face began to change. "We have medical exams performed the same day of the transfer that certify complete mental lucidity. We have testimonies from medical professionals. We have declarations from notaries who interacted directly with Mr. Charles and confirm that he understood perfectly what he was doing." The judge took off his glasses. He looked directly at Michael. "Furthermore, I find it particularly worrying that the plaintiff, Ms. Eleanor's son, admitted under oath that he collected rents from his mother's properties without authorization. That, sir, is theft, and the fact that he has not faced criminal charges is solely because his mother has shown a mercy that he frankly does not deserve." Jennifer stifled a scream. "This case has no legal merit whatsoever. It is a transparent attempt by a son to take from his mother what legitimately belongs to her. It is, let me be frank, repugnant." Michael's lawyer tried to object, but the judge raised his hand. "I am not finished. The lawsuit is completely dismissed. Furthermore, I order that the plaintiffs pay all the legal costs of the defense. Ms. Eleanor acted within her rights at all times. The properties were hers to do with as she pleased, and her decision to protect her assets from greedy relatives was not only legal, but prudent." He hit the gavel. Case closed. The silence was absolute for 3 seconds. Then Amelia hugged me. Rachel cried with joy. Rose simply nodded with professional satisfaction. On the other side of the room, Jennifer had her head in her hands. Michael stared blankly, defeated, destroyed, finally facing the reality that he had lost everything. Not because of me, because of his own decisions. We left the court and stepped into the bright New York sun. The air had never smelled so sweet. The sky had never been so blue. "How do you feel?" Rose asked me. "Victorious," I replied, "but also sad." "It's normal. You just won against your own son." "I didn't win against him. I won against what he became." Rose placed her hand on my shoulder. "Eleanor, today justice worked. Today the system did the right thing. And today you showed your son that mothers are not easy prey, that older women are not helpless victims, that 40 years of work and sacrifice are not easily stolen." She was right, but it still hurt. Because no matter how right you are, no matter how much justice is on your side, fighting against your own child leaves scars that never fully heal. That night, alone in my house, I cried. I cried for the boy Michael was, for the man he could have been, for the relationship we lost, for the grandchildren I would probably never see again. I cried for Charles, for not having him by my side to share this bitter victory. I cried for myself, for having to be so strong, for having to fight when all I wanted was peace. But when I finished crying, I wiped my tears. I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a woman of 64, grey hair, wrinkles on her face, but also strength in her eyes, dignity in her posture, power in her gaze. I saw a survivor. I saw a warrior. I saw someone who did not allow herself to be defeated. And I smiled. Because I had won. Not just in court. I had won my freedom, my peace, my right to live without being controlled, without being manipulated, without being seen as a source of money. I had won the right to decide my own destiny. 2 weeks later, Rose called me. "Eleanor, Michael wants to talk to you." "No. He says he wants to apologize." "I'm not interested. He says he understands what he did wrong." "Rose, do you believe him?" There was silence. "No," she admitted. "I think he is desperate because his house is in foreclosure. I think he thinks that if he apologizes, you will help him financially." "Then your answer is no. Definitely no." "Are you sure? He's your son." "He was my son. Now he's just a man who tried to steal from me. And I don't negotiate with thieves." Rose did not insist. Because she knew me. And she knew that when I made a decision, it was final. The months passed. Life went on. Slowly, I began to heal. Amelia visited me often. We went out for lunch. We went to the movies. We did the things I never had time to do when I was managing 11 properties. Rachel and I became closer. We shared coffee every morning. We talked about life, about our fears, about our triumphs. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. Real peace. Not the false peace of pretending everything is fine, but the true peace of knowing you did the right thing even though it hurt. A year after the trial, something unexpected happened. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my garden trimming the roses that Charles had planted years ago. The sun was high. The air smelled of damp earth and fresh flowers. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Amelia wouldn't come until Thursday. Rachel was traveling, visiting her sister. I went to the door. I looked through the peephole, and my heart stopped. It was Sarah, my granddaughter, 14 years old, long dark hair like her father's when he was a boy, big, scared eyes. I opened the door immediately. Sarah. Grandma. Her voice broke. There were tears in her eyes. Can I come in? Please. Of course, my love. Of course. She came in quickly. She looked back as if someone might be following her. Are you alone? Yes, what happened? Are you okay? She collapsed onto the sofa, and then she started to cry. Not a soft cry, a deep cry, desperate, of someone who has been holding everything back for too long. I sat next to her. I hugged her. She smelled of apple shampoo and youth, of the innocence her father had lost a long time ago. Tell me, I whispered. Tell me everything. And she spoke. She told me about the last year, about how their house had been foreclosed, about how they had to move to a small apartment in a dangerous neighborhood, about how her father came home every night more bitter, more furious, more defeated. He blames everyone, Sarah said between sobs. The bank, the economy, his bosses, but mostly you, Grandma. He blames you for everything. I know, my love, but I heard the recordings. Mum played them in court, and I was there. I heard what they told you, what they did to you. She looked at me with eyes full of pain. Why are they like that? Why did Dad turn so mean? I didn't have an answer, not one she could understand at 14. Sometimes people change, I finally said. Sometimes money shows them who they really are, and sometimes what they show isn't pretty. Mum is worse. She yells all the time. She says you stole our future, that we should hate you, that you are a selfish old woman who left us on the street. Every word hurt, but it didn't surprise me. And you? Do you hate me? Sarah hugged me tighter. No, never, because I remember how you were before. I remember when I came to visit you and you told me stories about Grandpa, about how you worked together, about how you built everything from scratch. I remember you always told me that money doesn't make people, that hard work and honesty do. I cried. I couldn't help it. I miss Grandpa, she whispered. He never would have let this happen. Your grandpa loved you very much. You and David. You were his joy. Is it true that you left a property for us? For David and for me? Yes, the house in Long Island. The first one your grandpa and I bought. It will be yours when you turn 25. Why not until 25? Because by then you will be real adults, mature, capable of making your own decisions. And because by then your parents won't be able to pressure you to give them the money. Sarah nodded slowly. They are smart. Grandma, I know it sounds terrible to say this about my own parents, but they are greedy. And if they could touch that money now, there would be nothing left for us. The wisdom in her words broke my heart. 14 years old, and she already understood what many adults never understand. Does your father know you are here? No. He said that if he ever saw me or talked to you, he would kick me out of the house. But I needed to see you. I needed you to know that I don't blame you, that I understand why you did what you did. And David? How is he? Confused. He's 11 years old. He doesn't understand why we don't come to see you anymore. Why Dad gets furious if someone mentions your name. But he also doesn't understand why we lost the house. Why Mum cries every night. Why everything is so difficult now. Are you okay? Do you have food? Clothes? We have the basics, but it's not like before. Before Mum bought expensive clothes every week. Now we buy at thrift stores. Before we ate at restaurants. Now we eat pasta and rice almost every day. And your father works? Yes, but he lost his good job 6 months ago. Now he works in something that pays a lot less. And Mum had to get a job at a store. She hates it. She says it's humiliating. Humiliating. Jennifer, who always wore expensive dresses and designer shoes, now worked in a store. The irony was almost poetic. Sarah, listen to me closely. I took her face in my hands. None of what happened is your fault. Not yours, nor David's. You are innocent in all this. And I want you to know something important. What? When you turn 25, you will have that property. But you will also have something else. You will have letters that I wrote for you. Letters where I explain everything. The story of your grandpa and me. Why I made the decisions I made. And I also left you instructions on how to handle the money, how to invest, how to protect yourselves, how not to make the mistakes your father made. Really, really. And I also left money for your college education, in a fund that your parents cannot touch. When you are ready to go to college, there will be money waiting for you. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not tears of sadness. They were of relief, of hope. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you for not forgetting us. I could never forget you. You are the best thing your father did in his life, even if he doesn't see it now. Sarah stayed for an hour more. We talked. We laughed. She cried a little more. I gave her food. I prepared a package of things for her to take. Cookies, fruit, a little cash that I slipped into her pocket when she wasn't looking. When she left, she hugged me tightly. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, my dear. And remember, no matter what your parents say, no matter how much they hate me, I will always be here for you and for David. Always. Can I come again? Whenever you want. But be careful. I don't want you to have problems with your father. The trouble will be worth it. She left, and I stayed at the door, watching her walk down the street until she disappeared. That night I called Rose. Sarah came to see me. What? How? I told her everything. Eleanor, this could be complicated. If Michael finds out, let him find out. I'm not going to keep my grandchildren away from me because their father is an idiot. Rose sighed. All right, but we need to do something else. We need to make sure that if anything happens to you, Sarah and David are truly protected. What do you propose? I'm going to create a second trust, one for emergencies. If either of your grandchildren needs anything before they are 25, education, health, real emergencies, there will be funds available, but only through me. Michael won't be able to touch them. Do it. And so it was done. For the following months, Sarah came to visit me every 2 weeks, always in secret, always making sure her parents didn't know. She told me about school, about her dreams. She wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to help people. She wanted to be different from her parents. I want to be like you and Grandpa, she told me once. I want to work hard. I want to earn things. I don't want to wait for inheritances. I don't want money to change me like it changed Dad. And in that moment, I knew that everything had been worth it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every day in court, every moment of pain, because I had saved my grandchildren. I hadn't just left them money, I had left them a lesson about dignity, about hard work, about not letting greed destroy you. And that lesson was worth more than any property. One afternoon, 3 months after Sarah's first visit, David also showed up at my door. More timid than his sister, more confused, but with the same eyes, Charles's eyes. Sarah told me I could come, he said in a low voice. Of course you can, always can. I hugged him. He was taller than I remembered, 11 years old, turning 12, growing up without me. Why does Dad hate you? He asked directly. Children always ask the hardest questions. Your dad doesn't hate me. He hates the decisions I made. He hates that I didn't give him what he wanted when he wanted it. But someday when you are older, you will understand that sometimes saying no is the greatest show of love. I don't understand. I know, but you will understand. I promise you. David stayed for less time than Sarah. But before leaving, he asked me something that surprised me. Grandma, can I see pictures of Grandpa? I showed him entire albums. Pictures of young Charles, Charles working, Charles smiling, Charles with baby Michael. He looks happy, David observed. He was, despite working so hard, despite having so little at first. He was happy because he had love, family, purpose. Do you think Dad was happy before? Yes, I think so. And now? I looked at my grandson, 11 years old with the wisdom of someone much older. Now your dad is lost, but maybe someday he will find himself again. I wanted to believe it, but deep down, I wasn't sure. 2 years after the trial, I received a call I wasn't expecting. It was night. I was reading in my living room when the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up the receiver. Eleanor? The voice was weak, broken, almost unrecognizable. But it was my son's, Michael. There was a long silence. I could hear his breathing. Irregular, as if he was crying or trying not to. I need to talk to you. Rose told me you wanted to apologize 2 years ago. I wasn't interested then. Why should I be interested now? Because Jennifer left me. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel victory. I only felt empty. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. You were right about her. About everything. His voice completely broke. She left as soon as the money ran out. She met another man, one with money. She took the kids. Now I live alone in a one-room apartment and I see my kids every other weekend. Michael. No. Let me finish. Please. He took a deep breath. I spent 2 years blaming you. 2 years hating you. 2 years telling myself that you had ruined my life. That if you had given me the properties, everything would have been fine. But it wouldn't have been fine. I know it. Now I know it. He cried openly. I would have sold them. I would have spent all the money. On the house, on the cars, on keeping Jennifer happy. And in 5 years there would have been nothing left. Nothing except debts. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Last week, Sarah confronted me. She told me she had been visiting you, that you had explained everything to her, that she understood why you did what you did, and she asked me something that destroyed me. What did she ask you? She asked me if I had ever really loved you, or if I only loved your money. His voice was barely a whisper. And I couldn't answer her. Mum. I couldn't because I didn't know the answer. Tears ran down my face. I hated myself in that moment. I saw myself through my daughter's eyes. And I saw a monster. I saw someone who betrayed his own mother out of greed, who stole from you, who called you old, who took you to court, who tried to take everything you and Dad built. Michael. I'm not calling you to ask for money. I'm not calling you to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand. I understand that I caused all this, that you only protected yourself, that any mother in your place would have done the same. The silence stretched between us, years of pain, of betrayal, of broken love, all contained in that silence. "Can I see you?" he finally asked. "Just once, just to tell you in person, so you see my eyes and know that this time it's real." I closed my eyes. I thought about Charles, about what he would have wanted. "Come tomorrow, at 2. "Really? Really?" He hung up, and I stayed holding the phone, trembling. I called Rose immediately. "Michael wants to see me." "What did you tell him?" "To come tomorrow." "Eleanor, are you sure? It could be another manipulation." "It could be, but I have to try. He is my son, Rose, and no matter what he did, a part of me will always love him. Then I'll be there with you, as backup." "No, I need to do this alone." The next day, at 2 o'clock, Michael knocked on the door. When I opened it, I almost didn't recognize him. He had lost weight, a lot of weight. His face was haggard, deep dark circles under his eyes, simple, worn clothes. His shoes had marks of use. His hair, once always perfectly combed, was messy and had grey streaks I didn't remember. He looked like his father, like Charles in his final days, and my heart broke a little more. "Hello, Mum." "Hello, son." We stayed in the doorway for a moment, two strangers who were once everything to each other. "Come in." He walked in slowly. He looked at the house as if seeing it for the first time, or maybe as if he remembered it from another life. We sat in the living room, in the same places where everything had begun years ago. "You look different," I said. "I feel different. Losing everything changes you. It shows you who you really are when you don't have anything to hide behind." "And who are you?" "Someone who made terrible mistakes. Someone who hurt the person who loved him the most. Someone who has to live with that every day." He took an envelope from his pocket. He put it on the table. "What is that?" $42,000. Well, not exactly. It's a payment plan. I'm going to pay you back every cent I stole from you. It's going to take me years, but I'm going to do it." I looked at the envelope without touching it. "How?" "I'm working 2 jobs now. One in construction, like Dad, the other in a warehouse at night. It's not much, but it's honest. And every month I will deposit what I can until the debt is paid." "Michael, I don't need that money. But I need to pay it. For my soul, for my conscience, for having some dignity when I look in the mirror." I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in years, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw real remorse, genuine pain, true shame. "Your father would be proud that you are working in construction." Now I understand why he did it. There's dignity in hard work, in earning money with your hands, in sleeping tired but knowing you earned it. He wiped his eyes. I wish I had understood it sooner. Sometimes we need to lose everything to learn what really matters. "Do you forgive me?" His voice was small, vulnerable, like when he was a boy and had done something wrong. I thought about everything, about the pain, about the betrayal, about the cruel words, about the trial, about the lost years. But I also thought about the nights I rocked him when he had a fever, about the times we celebrated his achievements, about the pride in Charles's eyes when Michael graduated, about the boy he was before greed corrupted him. "Forgiveness does not erase what happened," I said slowly. "It does not rebuild trust in a day. It does not give us back the lost years." "I know. But it does open the door to the possibility of healing, slowly, with time." with actions, not just words. Then there is hope. There is always hope, son, but it has to come with real change, with consistency, with proving to yourself and your children that you learned the lesson. I will. I promise you. Don't promise me. Promise Sarah and David. They are the ones who suffered the most in all this. I already did. I explained everything to them. I asked for their forgiveness. I told them that their mother and I made terrible mistakes, that you and Dad were the good ones, that I was the one who was wrong. And what did they say? Sarah cried. She said she loved me, but was disappointed. David just hugged me and said he wanted me to be like Grandpa. He completely broke down. I don't deserve those kids. Then earn them. Work hard. Be honest. Teach them what your father tried to teach you, and that you didn't learn until it was almost too late. Michael nodded, wiping his tears with the sleeve of his worn shirt. We talked for 2 hours. We really talked. Not about money, not about properties, about life, about regrets, about lessons learned. When he left, he hugged me. A real hug. Not mechanical, not forced. I love you, Mum. And I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry. I love you too, son. And for the first time in years, it meant something. The following months were about slow reconstruction. Michael visited once a month. He always brought a check. Small, but constant. Sarah and David came more often, no longer in secret, now with their father's permission. I watched Michael slowly change, how he became more humble, wiser, more like the man Charles had dreamed he would be. Today, 4 years after the trial, Michael is still working. He has paid $22,000. He lives modestly, but with dignity. Sarah is in college studying medicine. David is in high school. Good student, good son. And I have peace. The house in Long Island is still there, waiting for my grandchildren. And every night I look at Charles's photo. I did it, love. I protected what we built. I saved our grandchildren, and maybe I saved our son too. If you ever face a situation where your family tries to manipulate you for money, remember my story. Protecting yourself is not selfishness. It is survival. It is dignity. And if you have to choose between peace and the family that hurts you, choose peace. Comment where you are watching this from if you ever had to protect yourself from your own family. You are not alone. Dignity is priceless. And your peace is worth more than any inheritance.